Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going through some tips on the best ways to be able to solo a CTA. So if you've been wanting to solo a CTA, but you've either struggled with it in the past or you haven't attempted it, I hope these tips will help you out. Let's get into it. Okay, before we begin, let me start off by saying that there really isn't any reason to solo a CTA. You don't get any special awards, and the payout's the same whether you complete it in a group or you complete it solo. And if you're in a group, you're going to complete these so much faster. So if you're trying to earn money and gold, the best thing is to get a group of people. You know, even 2 is better than soloing it. All the way up to 4 is going to make it super easy to complete. So don't think that you have to solo these. It's just if you are looking for a challenge or a little bit of an ego boost, then soloing it can be something fun to try out. Tip number 1, get to know the map that you're on. So use that time at the beginning to run around and see the different areas of the map that you can utilize. You are going to get overrun by enemies at some point in the later waves. And so you want to have an out, a place that you can run or a place that you can rotate so that you can get somewhere safer and regroup and start to take out those groups of enemies. Know if there's places where you can get up on a roof or up on something higher. This can be helpful when you have a lot of machete guys coming in or you have predators coming in the later waves. It could just be useful to get up on something to take out some of these enemies before you hop back down. I'm not a huge person to be up on the roof during CTAs, just because if you fall off the roof, you're in more trouble. But depending on the map, it can be super useful. As a matter of fact, on the original Valentine map, the only way I was able to solo it was utilizing the stable roof and using both sides because there were so many machete guys. Machete guys always got me. They're my complete nemesis. It's the worst enemy for me. So knowing your map and knowing where you can go when you have war wagons coming in, predators, machete guys, just being able to, again, rotate and get somewhere safe and then just be able to go back in is super useful. So use that time at the beginning, pay attention, or if you're trying to solo a CTA, it's really good to pick one map that you try over and over and over again until you solo it before you move on to the next one. And that's, again, just so you get to know the map, the enemies, and what you can expect along the way. Tip number 2 is to take in guns with the most amount of ammo possible. When you're soloing a CTA, you're going to be killing upwards of 400 to 500 enemies easily. And so the more ammo you have, the easier it's going to be to accomplish that, and also the less stress, because you're not going to constantly be trying to run around to ammo crates that honestly bug out most of the time and aren't going to give you either the ammo that you're looking for, or they're just not going to give you any ammo at all. My go-to weapons when I solo a CTA are revolvers, a repeater, and a shotgun. The reason for this is if you don't have them already, you can purchase ammo pamphlets at the fence that are going to give you extra rounds for each of those 3 guns. So for the revolvers and the repeater, you can buy an ammo pamphlet that gives you 200 extra regular rounds. And the most important is your shotgun. You can get an ammo pamphlet that gives you 120 shells versus 60. Now, these ammo pamphlets are very expensive. I would start with the shotgun one and then get the repeater and then get the revolver if you can. But having more rounds, again, can just take that little bit of stress, you know, and thinking about it off your mind. You know you're going to have plenty of rounds. You also want to start with your regular rounds because the enemies are easier to kill at the beginning of the CTA versus the end. So start with your regular rounds. I normally use them up through wave 7. I'll switch over to high velocity at some point, usually around wave 8, maybe keep them for wave 9, and then I'll finish off with my express rounds. This just helps so that I make sure I have plenty of rounds through the whole match. And also the enemies during the later waves of the CTA are going to be harder to kill than at the beginning. That's just Rockstar's way of making it more difficult. So it might take more shots, and having high velocity or having express can really help when it comes to that. Now, sometimes the guns you need for the maps are going to change based off the size of the map. So for example, for the Merry Call to Arms Hanging Dog Ranch, and then for the regular one, Fort Mercer, the regular CTA, there are enemies that stay out kind of far from where you are, and they might be on a cannon or they might be snipers, and they're not going to run in to the middle of the map. So having a rifle can be super useful, whether it's a Carcano or a rolling block or even a bolt action or the Springfield can be useful to get those enemies that are far away, especially the cannon guys that are going to basically one-shot you. So sometimes if the map is a lot bigger, you're going to need to change your weapons up based off that. But for a lot of the maps, you can get away with the closer distance weapons. If you do have to take in a rifle, I would keep the revolvers. I wouldn't switch to pistols because that's just going to lower down the amount of ammo, because rifles have less ammo than repeaters to start with. So pay attention to the map that you're picking. What size is it? Are there enemies that are going to stay kind of out far away where you might need a long distance weapon, or are they going to be running in? So the market is what I'm showcasing here. This is a very close quarters map. Those guns, the revolvers, repeater, shotgun, work great on this map because there's no enemies that stay out. There's no reason to have a rifle on this map. You just don't need it. But it's just something you want to be cognizant of, that they might change up based off the map that you're doing. Another tip when it comes to what you're bringing into the CTA, when it comes to weapons, keep in mind that weapons spawn on the map. So if you took a particular weapon in and you find that you need something different, you can run around and try to find that weapon you're looking for. For example, if you took in a repeater, but you do notice a lot of enemies, snipers on the outside of the map that aren't running in, you could run around and look for a sniper rifle or a bolt action to be able to take them out a little bit more easily. And then also you want to make sure that you stock up on tonics. You want to make sure you're getting that big game meat and cooking it with mint and thyme specifically, because you want to get gold cores for your health and for your Deadeye. And also you want to make sure that you are stocking up on dynamite and dynamite arrows, as that can be very useful in later rounds. Again, there's always dynamite, and you're going to get dynabos on the map as well, so you can always pick them up or replenish your dynamite, but that can be very useful against bucket heads and war wagons. Tip number 3 is to use the mini-map and have good map awareness. In order to solo a CTA, you really have to be paying attention to everything that is going on. Usually you're going to be, especially in later waves, utilizing the outer edge of the map, and that way you have a better idea of what enemies are coming in, but enemies are always going to run in behind you. So you have to be using that mini-map to know when a new set of enemies is running in behind you, and you have to pay attention to the icons or how fast the dot is moving so you know what type of enemy is coming in. The most dangerous enemies to you, especially in later rounds, are going to be machete guys, the guys with the tomahawks, predators, snipers, war wagons, and cannons. All of these things can kill you in one shot depending on what wave you're on and what your core is at. So you really need to be paying attention to them. Machete guys are going to be guys running into you holding a machete, and usually the dots are moving a little bit faster. Now the faster moving dots could be somebody on horseback, but you also have to be paying attention to that because the guys on horseback could have tomahawks, which is another dangerous enemy. So if you see faster moving dots, make sure you look around, and if a machete is running at you, run away from them to get a little distance before you turn to shoot, because if they get into swing animation, Rockstar doesn't allow you to fire your gun. The swing animation is always faster, so you don't want to get caught where you're taking a machete to the gut, because again, that's a one shot there. Tomahawks, they usually come in pairs, so 2 guys at a time, and they can fire off those tomahawks so fast. So they will just boom, 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 boom. Like both of them are just going to throw a ton of them at you at an inhuman speed. So use things like buildings or stuff to hide behind. Use your peek. You can even switch shoulders with the gun. I'm sure you already know that. If you're on controller, I think it's left on the D-pad, so you can kind of peek around buildings a little bit better. Dive, and also if you're on a horse, duck, and all these things are going to help so that the tomahawk doesn't actually land, because if you take 2 tomahawks back to back, you're dead. Like before you can blink, you're going to die. So pay attention to those guys. Predators are another one that you have to really pay attention to. The wave 5 predators aren't as tough. That's going to be things like wolves. I think there's gators on one, but they're not really as hard of enemies. You can usually see them coming in. They don't have a special icon on the map, but they don't normally kill you in one shot. So you have a little bit of time to get some bullets in them. But the predators on wave 9 and 10 can kill you in one go. So, and again, because they don't have a special icon, you can't use the minimap to know that's exactly where the predator is. You have to listen for them and be paying attention to where they're running in. That's going to be things like bears, cougars, panthers, and that can be a really good time to get up on something, get up on a roof, get up on a wagon, just for that very initial part of wave 9 and 10 until you know where the predators are so they don't jump you from behind. Especially the cats, very sneaky. The bears are a little bit bigger, they're a little easier to see coming in, but the cats, man, they'll pounce on you before you even know they're there. So just be aware, at the beginning of wave 9 there's going to be 1, at the beginning of wave 10 there's going to be 2. There's usually a little bit of space in between on wave 10 when they come in. So it's just something you want to have good map awareness. Snipers are another one that can one-shot you. On the map, they're going to show up as the white dot that's kind of blinking. And if you're being targeted, you're going to get that heartbeat sound. And if you have that, they are aimed right on you. And if they get a shot or two on you, again, dead. You want to take the snipers out as fast as possible at the beginning of the waves. The reason for this is when a lot of enemies start spawning on war wagons, you want to be able to run around to get some space and regroup. And if you have snipers where you're running to, they can take you out before you're able to take a breath. So take those out at the beginning as soon as you can. It's very important for later in the round. And then also war wagons or cannons. War wagons are going to show up as like the red wheel, and they can be very dangerous. Sometimes you can take a lot of rounds from them, and sometimes they're going to kill you in one shot. I got a clip for you to see later on that. It can be random. Obviously, the closer you are to it, the faster it can kill you. But the war wagons, at some point, if you take out the drivers, the wagon's going to stop, or it's going to stop on its own, usually somewhere. And you can kind of leave them for a little bit if you have a lot of enemies you're dealing with, as long as they don't have line of sight on you. So sometimes you can leave that enemy to a little bit later until you've cleared up some enemies, and you can do one of two things. You can hit it with a dynamite bow, you can hit it with a stick of dynamite, or what I like to do is use paint it black. I'll kind of stay behind a wall. I'll go into paint it black. I'll move out a little bit to paint the guy on the Gatling gun, and then I'll move out behind the wall and quickly fire. And a lot of times that'll just kill the guy on the gun, and that's it. Wagon's down. So it's kind of easy to take away. The cannons are usually stationary, but again, they do a ton of damage. You want to know when they're going to show up and try to take them out as soon as they get on the cannon, because it can be difficult if there's a lot of enemies around you to then snipe them from afar if they have spawned in on that cannon. Tip number 4, take a look at your ability cards before you go into solo a CTA. There is no one correct loadout to have when it comes to the ability cards, because it really is going to depend a little bit on your play style and what cards you like to utilize. For me, I use Paint It Black, Strange Medicine, Eye for an Eye, Fool Me Once. This is the best setup for me and my playstyle. I like to constantly be moving around. I'm running around. So some people, slow and steady is going to work a little bit better. If you use slow and steady, you're going to be able to take a lot more damage. So if you find you're dying very quickly, that card can really help you to be able to take some damage, take out the enemies before you die, and give you a chance to take some tonics and reset. For me, I like to be able to paint enemies' heads. I like to be able to paint the drivers in a war wagon, snipers. And again, because I don't like to be kind of forced to stand in one spot, I like to run around. That's just a better card for me. And so it's really just going to depend on you. Strange Medicine is an excellent card to use in CTAs, because anytime you do damage, you're going to get health back. And if you're surrounded by a ton of enemies and you're taking out a bunch, one right after the other, so boom, 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 like you can get a ton of health back. If you have a group of enemies and you throw a stick of dynamite into them and it kills all of them, you're going to get all of your health back. So when you're taking a lot of damage, it can just be helpful to have Strange Medicine to constantly be adding to your health to give you time to take a tonic in between. I like Eye for an Eye because every headshot is going to give you back some Deadeye, and I'm constantly using headshots and getting that Deadeye back. Now, in CTAs, Deadeye does drain a lot faster, and I do find that it's harder to get the headshot sometimes. It can be a little wonky. Again, that's just Rockstar's way of making it more difficult. So Eye for an Eye could be switched out for something else. You'll just have to be aware that you might have to take some more tonics for that Deadeye. And then Fool Me Once, again, just reduces the amount of damage you're taking. So it's all about survivability, but maybe you like to hunker down behind stuff. And if you do that, there's a card that you could use for that. So really just take a look at what you're currently using, take a look at your play style, read through the cards, and see what you think might work best for you. Now, if you have literally no idea what to pick, give some of these cards that I use a try, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, switch it up next time. But ability cards can be super useful and can make the difference on whether or not you actually complete the CTA. Tip number 5 is to take your time. And this is one I have to constantly remind myself because I get super impatient at some point in the later waves. When you get past wave 5, things get a little trickier. Enemies hit a little bit harder, more of them come in, you have special enemies now. So once you get past wave 5, it can be very tempting to run right into a group of enemies or run right toward the red dots. But sometimes it's a little bit better to just take your time, maybe get a different position and take out enemies, like single enemies, let them come to you a little bit. Because the second that you get impatient and you start running in is when you take a machete to the gut, a tomahawk to the head, a sniper takes you out, the war wagon gets you. And so this is something I fail all the time because I get super impatient and I'll just be like, that's it. I'm just going to go in and start taking them out. And inevitably there's an enemy there that I was not expecting or that just gets the jump on me. So take your time. Move around to different areas. If you're having trouble getting to certain enemies, try to move around the map to a different location. See if you can get them to come out. It's so much better if you can get them to run towards you than you running in. And it's also something you want to be careful of is you don't want to run into an enclosed space with several red dots. So, try to get a little bit closer to that entrance and see if you can get them to run out at you. But again, take a deep breath, take your time, be patient, and that's really going to go a long way for you. My final tip on soloing CTAs is just to accept that sometimes you're going to die for a bullshit reason because Rockstar's an asshole. Part of soloing CTAs is pure luck. Sometimes you're just going to die in a way that you're just like, what the hell just happened? Like you're going to die for reasons that you should not have died for. There's going to be some freak thing that happens. There's going to be one rogue dynamite barrel somewhere that somebody's going to hit while you're shooting at somebody. The war wagon that you can take so much damage from most of the time is going to insta-kill you. And that's literally what's happening on screen right now. I was in wave 9, almost to the end of wave 9 in the market, the new CTA. Things were going great. As a matter of fact, the market is one of the easier ones to solo, I think. It's maybe going to take a little bit more time because of that middle area where they get caught up in. But I found it pretty easy. I utilized a method I do all the time for taking out war wagons. I didn't even need to take that war wagon out right there. I had taken out the drivers from behind a wall. I painted the driver. Unfortunately, it painted twice. And when I moved out to shoot, the second shot, actually, I think I got the red X on and the war wagon still insta-killed me. So just know that sometimes you're going to do everything right. And there's just going to be some BS reason why you died. And there's nothing you could do about it. It's going to happen. That rogue machete guy is going to catch you that you didn't even know was there. So just accept that those things happen. Know that soloing is partially luck and RNG and what you have coming in and how many enemies are coming in, how well the server's doing, how well your shots are hitting and connecting. And it's just going to happen. So as long as you accept that and know that it was probably nothing you could have done there, it's just one of those things. It's just when you start soloing CTAs, just be prepared for those type of things to happen. Okay, guys, so those are some of the best tips that I can give you if you're attempting to solo a CTA. Remember, soloing is completely unnecessary, so don't think that it's something that you have to do. One tip that I did forget to mention throughout is at the very beginning, go around and blow up all the dynamite that's on the map because you'll get killed by it. You'll just be standing near it, not even realize it, and then you'll shoot it and it'll kill you. So I forgot to mention that. Just get all the dynamite. But other than that, it's really just about knowing the map, having good map awareness, taking in the right weapons, and being patient. And if you do all those things, then eventually you will be able to solo it if that's a challenge that you set for yourself. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a tip for soloing that I did not mention, please leave a comment below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.